Hey, second graders. Here I am sitting on Moose's couch in the lounge. Yes, Moose has his own couch. He's a little bit spoiled. But I've got another chapter of Wayside School for us. This one, chapter 7, A Bad Word. Oh boy, what kind of nonsense are we going to read in this chapter? Early in the morning, a white limousine drove up to Wayside School. Just like always. The chauffeur got out of the car, then opened the passenger door. Just like always. Mr. Kidswatter stepped out of the car. "Thank you, James," he said. "My name is David," said the chauffeur. Just like always. Mr. Kidswatter entered the school building. Good morning, Mr. Kidswatter," said Mrs. Day, the school secretary. She handed him a cup of hot coffee. Just like always. "Thank you, Miss Knight," said Mr. Kidswatter. He walked into his office, except his office door was closed. He smashed into it, spilling coffee all over his green suit. "Who closed my door?" he demanded. "Why didn't you just open it?" asked Miss Day. "It's always open in the morning," said Mr. Kidswatter. "How was I supposed to know it was closed this time?" Up on the 30th story, Mrs. Jules took roll. Todd was absent. "Oh dear, I hope Todd is all right," said Mrs. Jules. "Todd's never all right," said Joy. She and Marisa laughed. Damien looked at Mrs. Jules. Ever since he returned to Wayside School, he'd thought there was something different about her, but he still couldn't figure out what it was. Mr. Kidswatter's voice came over the PA system. "Good morning, boys and girls." There was the usual pause. "Today I want to talk about doors," said Mr. Kidswatter. "This should be interesting," said Mrs. Jules. "Do you know how many doors there are in this school building?" Mrs. Jules shook her head. "Well, there are a lot. Over 30. And some of you probably have doors at home too. Maybe more than one. All those doors. Think about it." "Well, Mr. Kidswatter has certainly given us something to think about this morning," said Mrs. Jules. "So remember," said Mr. Kidswatter, "and please be careful. Always check to see if a door is open before going through it, and if it's not, open it. If you can't open it yourself, ask someone to open it for you. This may not make a lot of sense to you now, but someday you'll thank me." Mrs. Jules looked around the class. "That's good advice," she said. "I think most of you already knew it, but at least it's nice to know we have a principal who cares." "I hate doors," shouted Mr. Kidswatter. "It's a ridiculously silly word. Door, door, door. Who made that word up anyway?" Mrs. Jules waited a little longer, but Mr. Kidswatter seemed to be finished. "Some people just don't like doors," she said. "I have made a new rule," declared Mr. Kidswatter. "You may no longer say that word. You know what word I mean, but don't say it. Instead, I have made up a new word for you. Guzak. Open the Guzak, shut the Guzak, lock the Guzak. Don't you think that's a better word? I do. From now on, that other word is a bad word. I have made my decision." Everyone turned around and looked at the Guzak. Suddenly it opened. Todd entered. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said. "That's okay," said Mrs. Jules. "I'm just glad you're not sick or hurt." "My dad locked his keys in the car," Todd explained. "We had to use a coat hanger to unlock the door." Everyone gasped. Can you gasp? And why are they gasping? What did Todd say? Mrs. Jules made Todd write his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. If you could change the word door to any word, what would it be? Would it be something silly like Guzak? You can let me know.